The quiet mechanic. The smell of engine coolant and recycled air was familiar comfort to Rowan Vale as she hunched over the shuttle's propulsion assembly, her grease-stained hands working a torque wrench with practiced precision. Around her, Frontier Station hummed with the constant traffic of traders, smugglers, and refugees, the desperate edges of humanity and a dozen other species trying to survive in the lawless border regions of colonized space. Keep your head down. Don't stand out. Just another mechanic trying to make rent. It was a mantra she repeated daily, a deliberate effort to be invisible. Captain Rowan Ghost Vale, the woman who'd led elite special forces through impossible missions, who'd been decorated for operations that officially never happened, who'd earned her call sign by being able to disappear in plain sight, was supposed to be dead. Her entire team was dead, ambushed on a mission that Intel had promised was routine. Only she'd survived. And the guilt was worse than any physical wound. Wrench. Rowan blinked, realizing her supervisor, Chen, was standing beside her workstation. She handed over the tool mechanically, playing the role of the quiet, slightly slow mechanic she'd constructed over the past 6 months. You okay, Vale? You look spacey. Fine. Just tired. She kept her voice soft, uncertain, nothing like the command voice that had once rallied soldiers under fire. Chen grunted and moved on. Rowan returned to her work, deliberately fumbling a connector in a way that would take extra time to fix. Can't be too competent. Can't draw attention. The station's public address system crackled, incoming transport, Bay 7. All cargo personnel report. Through the bay's observation window, Rowan watched the cargo area come alive with activity. Workers scrambled to meet the arriving ship, a converted freighter that looked like it had survived more firefights than inspections. Among the workers, one figure stood out. Blue skin. Unmistakably Celestian. The woman, slender, graceful despite the bulky cargo loader's uniform, moved with an artist's precision rather than a laborer's efficiency. Her silver hair was bound in a practical braid, and even from this distance, Rowan could see the delicate bioluminescent patterns that marked Celestian skin flickering with subtle emotions. Out of place. Vulnerable. Target. Rowan's tactical assessment was automatic, unwanted, a reflex she couldn't shut off no matter how hard she tried to be just a mechanic. As if summoning trouble through thought alone, 3 men emerged from the freighter's cargo bay. Not the ship's crew, these were the mismatched tactical gear and swagger of Marcus Kane's enforcers. Everyone on Frontier Station knew Kane controlled the shipping lanes, the black market, and most legitimate businesses through a combination of bribery and brutality. The lead enforcer, a scarred man called Vex, approached the Celestian woman directly. Even without audio, Rowan could read the body language, intimidation, aggression, the blue woman backing away, trying to maintain space. Not your problem. Stay invisible. You're not Ghost anymore. You're just Rowan, the mechanic who barely knows which end of a wrench to hold. But her feet were already moving toward the cargo bay before her conscious mind agreed to the action. She arrived just as Vex grabbed the Celestian woman's arm, his voice carrying through the bay. Last time I'm asking nice, Lissa. Mr. Kane provides protection. Protection costs money. You've been here 3 months without paying. Time to settle up. I'm paid up with station fees, Lissa said, her voice carrying a musical accent that marked her as recently arrived. Her blue skin flushed darker with stress. I don't need additional protection. You don't get to decide that. Vex's grip tightened, and Lissa winced. His 2 companions moved to flank her, cutting off escape routes. Rowan's combat computer, the tactical processing that 15 years of special forces had burned into her neural pathways, automatically assessed, Vex, primary threat, armed with plasma pistol on right hip, knife on left ankle, overconfident in close quarters. Second man, heavy build, slower, probably relies on intimidation over skill. Third man, wiry, scanning for witnesses rather than focusing on target, nervous, will fold if confronted. She could disarm all 3 in under 10 seconds without breaking a sweat. Instead, she shuffled forward, deliberately clumsy, stumbling slightly as she approached. Excuse me? Is there a problem? All four turned to look at her. Vex's expression shifted from threatening to dismissive in a heartbeat. No problem, mechanic. Move along unless you want to join Fish Girl here in owing Mr. Kane. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding. I'm sure she doesn't mean any disrespect. I said move along. Vex shoved Rowan with his free hand, not hard enough to really hurt but enough to send her stumbling backward. Rowan let herself fall, catching herself awkwardly on a cargo container, playing the frightened civilian perfectly. Every instinct screamed to pivot, use his extended arm against him, put him face down on the deck before he even registered the threat. Instead, she scrambled away, radiating harmless fear. Vex laughed, his companions joining in. See, Lissa? That's smart. Your friend knows when she's outmatched. You should learn from her. Rowan watched from a safe distance as they continued their intimidation, eventually leaving with vague threats about next time. Lissa stood there afterward, shaking slightly, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically, distress signals written in light. Only when the enforcers were gone did Rowan approach again, slowly, non-threateningly. Are you okay? Lissa looked at her with eyes like deep oceans, sadness and fear mixed with something else, appreciation, maybe, that someone had tried to help even if ineffectively. Thank you for trying. You didn't have to. Her voice was gentle despite the circumstances. I'm Lissa. Rowan. She helped Lissa gather the cargo manifest tablets that had been knocked to the ground during the confrontation. Do they do this often? Often enough. Lissa's luminescent pattern steadied slightly. To anyone they think is vulnerable. Especially outsiders like me. Predators targeting prey. Standard operating procedure for crime syndicates. Establish dominance through fear, extract resources, eliminate resistance. Maybe there's someone you can report them to. Station security. Lissa's laugh was soft and bitter. Station security answers to Kane. Everyone does, one way or another. Rowan knew she was right. She'd done her research when she arrived. Frontier Station was exactly the kind of place where someone could disappear, which made it perfect for hiding, and terrible for anyone who needed protection. They stood in awkward silence for a moment, two people on the edges of society, recognizing something in each other. I should get back to work, Lissa said finally. Me too. But Rowan hesitated. Lissa. Be careful. People like Vex, they escalate. I know. The Celestian woman smiled sadly. But what choice do I have? I need this job to save passage money. A few more months, and I can reach the inner colonies. There are Celestian communities there, safe places. A few months. Rowan watched her walk away, that tactical assessment computer still running in the background, high-value target. Isolated. Vulnerable. Escalation probability, 94%. Intervention timeline, limited. She went back to her shuttle bay, back to her wrenches and coolant lines, back to pretending she was just a quiet mechanic who couldn't protect anyone. But that night, lying in her tiny station quarters, staring at the ceiling, Rowan couldn't stop thinking about Blue's skin flickering with fear, about a gentle voice saying, "What choice do I have?" She'd come here to escape being a weapon. She just hoped she wouldn't have to become one again to protect someone who didn't deserve to be another casualty in someone else's war. Outside her window, Frontier Station cycled through its artificial night, and somewhere in the darkness, predators were planning their next move. Rowan's hands clenched into fists she couldn't relax. A few more months, she told herself. Just keep your head down a few more months. But she'd been a soldier long enough to know when a situation was going to explode. And her instinct said time was running out. Building bonds. The days following the cargo bay incident established a pattern. Rowan kept her head down during work hours, and Lissa navigated the increasingly hostile environment of Frontier Station with quiet dignity. But their orbits kept intersecting. "You don't have to eat alone, you know." Rowan looked up from her protein ration in the station's mess hall to find Lissa standing there with her own tray, her blue skin catching the harsh fluorescent lighting in a way that made her seem to glow. "I'm not great company," Rowan said, but gestured to the empty seat across from her anyway. Lissa sat, arranging her food with an artist's precision. "Neither am I, according to most people here. We can be not great company together." A smile tugged at Rowan's lips despite herself. "Deal." That first shared meal turned into a routine. Lunch breaks became a sanctuary from the station's casual cruelty, a space where neither had to perform or pretend. Lissa talked about Celestia with a mixture of longing and grief. "We were artists primarily," she explained, using her finger to trace patterns on the table that mimicked the bioluminescent displays she described. "Our skin doesn't just change color with emotion, we can control it consciously, create living paintings. My commune specialized in memorial art. When someone died, we would create light paintings of their essence, capturing who they were in patterns of color and movement." "That sounds beautiful," Rowan said, genuinely moved. It was. Lissa's patterns dimmed to melancholy blue. Until the war came. Factions fighting over resources, over philosophy, over things that seemed so important until bombs started falling on artists who wanted no part of anyone's conflict. Her voice caught. "My family had a compound in the coastal region. We thought we were isolated enough to be safe. We were wrong." Rowan reached across the table, covering Lissa's hand with her own. The Celestian's skin was cooler than human baseline, slightly damp, but the contact felt right. "I'm sorry," Rowan said, and meant it with the weight of someone who understood loss. "Your turn," Lissa said gently. "You're running from something too. I can see it in how you hold yourself, how you watch everyone like you're calculating threats." Rowan should have deflected. Instead, she found herself talking. "I was in the military. Special operations. Things I can't talk about in places you've never heard of." She stared at their joined hands. "My team was, they were family. We'd survived impossible situations together. Then one day, someone sold us out. Bad intel, compromised positions, enemy waiting exactly where we were supposed to be safe. And you survived when they didn't," Lissa finished, understanding immediately. "Yeah. And I can't figure out why. Why me and not them? They had families, futures, reasons to live. I was just..." Rowan struggled with words. "I was just good at the job. That's all I was." "I doubt that's all you were." Lissa squeezed her hand. "But I understand the guilt. After the bombing, I was the only one from my family who made it to the evacuation ships. My parents, my brothers, my partner, all gone because I happened to be at the market that day instead of home. Survivor's guilt doesn't follow logic." They sat in silence for a moment, two people carrying the weight of continuing to exist when their loved ones could not. The quiet intimacy was shattered by Derek, one of Vex's crew, stopping at their table. "Well, well. The scared mechanic and the fish girl. Cute couple." His sneer made it clear he didn't mean it as a compliment. "Word of advice, Lissa, your protection here couldn't protect a kitten. Might want to reconsider Mr. Kane's generous offer before something unfortunate happens." He walked away laughing. Rowan's jaw clenched, her combat instincts screaming tactical assessments, vulnerable position, ceramic knife in boot, trachea exposed, 3 strikes would. "Breathe," Lissa said softly, and Rowan realized her hand had curled into a fist. "He's not worth it. He's a threat to you. So are a dozen others on this station. You can't fight them all." Lissa's patterns shifted to concerned purple. "That would require you to be something other than a quiet mechanic, wouldn't it?" Their eyes met, and Rowan saw understanding there. Lissa suspected there was more to her than the role she played. But instead of pushing, the Celestians simply changed the subject. Their friendship deepened over the following weeks. Rowan discovered that Lissa had managed to set up a tiny studio in her quarters, barely more than a storage closet, but she'd covered the walls with her light paintings, bioluminescent patterns that moved and shifted as her skin touched them, leaving traces of color that faded slowly. "This is incredible," Rowan breathed, watching a painting that seemed to depict a sunrise over an alien ocean. "This is memory," Lissa corrected. "Home. Before everything burned." She demonstrated, placing her palm against the wall and letting her patterns flow through her skin into the painting, adding new layers. "On Celestia, we say that art is how we remember forward, not just preserving the past, but imagining the future we want to create." "What future do you imagine?" Rowan asked. Lissa's patterns shifted through a rainbow of possibilities. "Safety. Community. A place where I can create again without fear. The inner colonies have Celestian enclaves, thousands of refugees building new lives together. I just need passage money. Another few months of work here, and I can afford it." A few months. Rowan felt something twist in her chest. She'd grown to care about this gentle artist, looked forward to their time together, felt something she'd thought died with her team: hope, connection, the possibility of something beyond survival. "Would you?" Rowan hesitated. "Would you want company? On the trip, I mean. I've been thinking about moving on, finding somewhere quieter." Lissa's smile was radiant, her patterns blazing with happiness. "I'd love that. I'd love that very much." The moment hung between them, charged with possibility, until Lissa stepped closer and kissed Rowan softly, a tentative exploration, cool lips against warm, a question more than a statement. Rowan responded carefully, aware of her capacity to hurt this gentle person, determined to be as controlled with affection as she was trained to be with violence. When they broke apart, both were breathing harder. "I should tell you," Rowan whispered, "I'm not as harmless as I seem. There are things about me that—" "I know you're more than you pretend," Lissa interrupted, her patterns showing only warmth and acceptance. "I don't need to know your past. I only need to know your present, and who you want to be in the future." "I want to be someone worthy of you," Rowan admitted. "Then you already are." Lissa kissed her again, deeper this time, and Rowan let herself believe that maybe warriors could find peace, that maybe she could be something other than the weapon she'd been trained to be. But outside Lissa's quarters, Frontier Station continued its brutal routines. Vex's crew continued their harassment, always careful to stay just on the legal side of violence. Kane's grip on the station tightened. And Rowan's tactical mind continued its calculations, watching the escalation pattern, predicting the inevitable breaking point. She just hoped when it came, she could protect Lissa without becoming the thing she feared most, the ghost again, the operator who solved problems with surgical violence, the weapon that couldn't be put back in its sheath once drawn. Just a few more months, she told herself, holding Lissa close in the artificial darkness of the station's night cycle. "We can make it a few more months." But soldiers know better than anyone, hope is a fragile thing, easily shattered by the reality of violence. And reality was coming, whether they were ready or not. The breaking point. 3 weeks had passed since that first encounter, and Rowan's worst predictions were proving accurate. Vex and his crew had escalated from verbal intimidation to accidental equipment malfunctions that cost Lissa wages, to outright theft of her personal belongings. But something else had grown in those 3 weeks, a connection Rowan hadn't anticipated. Late nights had become routine. After their shifts ended, Rowan and Lissa would meet in the station's observation lounge, a neglected space with a view of the stars that most workers were too exhausted to enjoy. They'd talk for hours. Lissa shared her story, an artist on Celestia, part of a commune dedicated to bioluminescent painting, a traditional art form where Celestians used their natural skin patterns to create living artworks. Then civil war erupted. Her commune was caught between factions. Her family died in a bombing, parents, 2 brothers, her partner. "I painted our memorial," Lissa said one night, her patterns glowing soft blue with remembered grief. In our tradition, when someone dies, we create light paintings of their essence. I painted for days, until I was too exhausted to stand. Then the militia came, and I had to run. Rowan found herself sharing too, not everything, not the classified details, but the emotional truth. My team, we were ambushed. Someone sold us out. I was the only one who made it out, and I don't even know why. Why me and not them? Survivor's guilt, Lissa said softly, understanding immediately. We carry the weight of continuing to exist when those we love cannot. It's not rational, but it's real. Their hands found each other in the darkness, Lissa's cool blue skin against Rowan's warmer tan. Neither pulled away. I'm afraid of who I was, Rowan admitted in a whisper. I was good at violence. Too good. And I'm terrified that if I let that part of me out again, I won't be able to put it back. Maybe you don't have to be one or the other, Lissa said, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to gentle purple, affection, Rowan had learned. Maybe you can be both the warrior and the person seeking peace. Why must they be separate? It was a question Rowan didn't have an answer for. Their relationship shifted gradually, naturally. A hand held became an arm around shoulders. A goodbye became a kiss on the cheek, then lips meeting tentatively, exploring the possibility of something more. I've never been with a human before, Lissa admitted after their first real kiss, her patterns dancing with a rainbow of emotions. Is this, okay? More than okay. Rowan cupped Lissa's blue face gently. You're the first person since everything, who makes me want to try. To hope. But hope was fragile on Frontier Station. The breaking point came on a Tuesday, arbitrary designation in space, but Rowan would remember it forever. Kane had offered Lissa a job opportunity, work directly for his organization doing artistic consulting. Translation: create forged identification documents using her bioluminescent manipulation skills. It was a common exploitation of Celestian refugees, their artistic abilities perverted into tools for criminal enterprise. Lissa refused. Vex received orders to make an example. Rowan was in her quarters when the emergency notification came through on her handheld, a desperate text from Lissa, Maintenance Corridor 7. Help. Every instinct that Rowan had been suppressing for 6 months ignited simultaneously. She was moving before conscious thought engaged, her body remembering training even as her mind screamed warnings about exposure, about becoming the weapon again, about all the reasons she'd come here to hide. None of it mattered more than Lissa. She found them in the corridor, Lissa backed against a wall, Vex and 5 of his crew surrounding her. One was holding Lissa's art supplies, delicate tools and pigments worth a year's wages, over an open waste reclamation unit. Last chance, fish girl, Vex was saying. Work for Mr. Kane, or we destroy everything you own, then we destroy you. Your choice. No. Lissa's voice shook but held firm. I won't help criminals. Wrong answer. Vex nodded, and his man dropped the art supplies into the waste unit. Lissa cried out in anguish as months of carefully saved materials were destroyed. Now, let's see what else we can break. Stop. Rowan's voice cut through the corridor like a blade. Every head turned toward her. She stood 20 feet away, still in her mechanic's coveralls, grease-stained and unassuming. Vex laughed. The scared little mechanic. Come to save your girlfriend? Cute. Boys, teach them both a lesson. Nothing permanent, Mr. Kane doesn't like damaged goods. The enforcers moved forward with the confidence of predators who'd never encountered real resistance. Rowan's tactical computer activated fully for the first time in 6 months, her consciousness splitting into combat mode, simultaneous threat assessment, environment mapping, response calculation, all happening in the microseconds before action. 6 hostiles. Corridor, 3 meters wide, 20 meters long. Environmental advantages, exposed conduit overhead, emergency fire suppression system, gravity plating access panel at 7 meters. Hostile armament, 3 plasma pistols, 2 shock batons, 1 vibraknife. Hostiles clustered, tactical error. Confidence level, amateur. Time to neutralize, estimated 90 to 110 seconds. The first enforcer reached for her. Rowan moved. She caught his wrist mid-grab, used his momentum and the corridor's low ceiling to slam him face-first into the overhead conduit. The impact dented the conduit and rendered him unconscious before he hit the floor. Time elapsed, 1.2 seconds. The second and third came together, shock batons extended. Rowan dropped low, swept the legs of the closer one while simultaneously ripping the exposed fire suppression handle. High-pressure foam exploded across the corridor, disorienting the attackers while Rowan's training meant she was operating by spatial memory and threat prediction rather than vision. She rose inside the third enforcer's guard, delivered 3 precise strikes, solar plexus, radial nerve, carotid compression, dropping him in controlled unconsciousness. The second was struggling to rise from her leg sweep, Rowan's boot to his temple ensured he stayed down. Time elapsed, 4.8 seconds. The foam cleared enough for the remaining 3 to see 2 of their crew disabled. Training finally overcame shock, they drew weapons. Rowan was already moving, using the fourth enforcer's body as cover while closing distance. Vibraknife thrust toward her center mass, she deflected with a forearm block that would have shattered civilian bone but barely registered through her conditioning, simultaneously striking the knife wielder's throat just hard enough to collapse his airway temporarily, painful, incapacitating, but non-lethal. The fifth enforcer fired his plasma pistol, wild, panicked shot that scorched the corridor wall. Rowan rolled, came up inside his firing arc, stripped the weapon with a joint lock that left his wrist sprained but functional, then used the pistol's grip to strike his temple. He dropped. That left Vex. The lieutenant had finally drawn his own weapon, but his hand was shaking. In the span of 15 seconds, he'd watched a scared little mechanic systematically dismantle his entire crew with a level of surgical violence that spoke of training far beyond station security, beyond military police, beyond anything he'd encountered in his criminal career. "You're not a mechanic," he whispered. "No." Rowan advanced slowly, the confiscated plasma pistol held with casual expertise. "I'm not. But I'm also not going to kill you, Vex. That would be too easy." She closed the distance between them in 2 strides, disarmed him with a wrist lock that sent his pistol clattering across the deck, then put him on his knees with a pressure point technique that left him gasping. "You're going to deliver a message to Marcus Kane," Rowan said, her voice returning to the command tone that had once led soldiers through hell. "Tell him Lissa is under my protection now. Tell him if anyone, touches her, looks at her wrong, or even thinks threatening thoughts in her direction, I will systematically dismantle his entire operation. I know where his money flows, where his shipments move, where every single vulnerability in his network exists." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to something absolutely lethal. "I'm Ghost. Captain Rowan Vale, formerly of Special Operations Command. And if you make me become that person again to protect someone I care about, Marcus Kane will discover that crime syndicates are much easier targets than the enemies I used to hunt." She released Vex, who scrambled away on hands and knees before finding his feet and running, leaving his groaning crew behind. Rowan turned to find Lissa staring at her, bioluminescent patterns flickering through a dozen emotions: shock, fear, awe, confusion. "Rowan?" Her voice was small. "What, who are you?" And Rowan felt the weight of revelation crash down on her. She'd exposed everything, her training, her past, her capacity for violence, to protect the one person who'd made her want to be something other than a weapon. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the adrenaline draining away, leaving only exhaustion and fear. "I'm so sorry, Lissa. I'm exactly the thing you fled from on Celestia. I'm a soldier. A killer. I tried to be something else, but you protected me." Lissa moved closer, stepping over the groaning enforcers, her patterns shifting to that deep purple of affection mixed with something else, understanding. "You could have killed them. I saw it. You had a dozen opportunities to use lethal force. But you didn't. You disabled them, controlled the situation, and gave them a chance to walk away. That doesn't change what I am. It changes everything. Lissa took Rowan's face in her cool blue hands. Warriors aren't defined by their capacity for violence. They're defined by their restraint, their choices, who they choose to protect. You chose me. You chose control over chaos. You chose to be exactly the warrior I needed. I'm terrified, Rowan admitted, tears streaming down her face. Terrified of who I am. Of what I'm capable of. Of becoming the weapon again and not being able to stop. Then I'll be your anchor. Lissa kissed her, gentle and fierce simultaneously. You pulled me from the darkness tonight. Let me pull you back when you need it. We can be each other's light. Around them, station security was finally arriving, alerted by the plasma discharge. Medical teams were tending to the groaning enforcers. And Rowan Vale, former ghost, current mechanic, and always warrior, held on to the blue-skinned artist who'd somehow become her reason to hope that warriors could find peace, that weapons could be set down, that love was possible even in the darkest corners of space. But as security took her statement and Vex limped away to deliver his message, one thing was absolutely certain. Marcus Kane now knew exactly who was protecting Lissa. And the real war was just beginning.